Welcome to All Volunteer, All Heart from Binky Patrol. Today I'm sharing a candid conversation with Cynthia Luvlee, CEO and founding board member of Shyne, an organization transforming how we support survivors of trafficking and exploitation. What began as a casual pre-interview chat quickly evolved into a powerful discussion about purpose, economic challenges, and innovative approaches to social change. In this segment, Cynthia shares how her extensive background in social services revealed a critical gap in traditional support systems, leading her to create Shyne's entrepreneurship-focused model. As we discuss the harsh economic realities facing vulnerable communities today, from skyrocketing housing costs to devastating programs cut, Cynthia offers insights into how these pressures particularly impact trafficking survivors. Her perspective highlights why traditional social services often fall short and how Shyne's approach differs by empowering survivors as leaders of their own lives rather than victims to be rescued. Join us for this unfiltered conversation about real challenges and meaningful solutions in today's complex economic landscape. I think what we're all finding through this community through Mr. Ballin and others, he's brought together an interesting selection of nonprofits.
Agreed.
What I see is no matter what nutso cuckoo-ness is happening in our country and in the world right now, what we can do is that we can change the world. We just start at a smaller scale.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still changing. It's still improving. We're still leaving the world a better place than when we came in.
Right.
And I think that's super important to remember, to hang on, to champion. And I don't know, I hate it when I hear people give me the excuses that they're so busy.
Right.
They're so busy. Are you?
Right. Well, it's priorities. It's how do we
It is.
prioritize and what's the legacy that we want to leave?
Right.
I mean, I recently lost one of my closest friends. It was very quick cancer, got diagnosed in November and took his last exhale February 10th. And 57 years old. And the beauty of the experience for me at this moment in time has been really that reigniting of like, what is the legacy that I'm able to leave for the planet while I'm here? And
Right.
looking at what he had built, the connections, the people, the love, and knowing that that's really the most important thing is connection, human understanding, and we're all in this together. And so like I look at what he left behind and the people, and I just the impact with his words and his podcast. He has a podcast called Stay Sparked that he is a part of, and now there's
Love it.
YouTube legacy of called Remembering Red Moon, and all of these wise, deeply, experiential lessons that he had gained in his time here. And I thought, that's really what this is all about, because guess what, Susan, at the end of the day, we don't even take the body with us.
Right.
You look around, you go, what am I actually doing here?
And there are times I have that exact question. It's like,
Yeah,
why does it even matter?
right.
Well, it does,
Right.
because the world's going to continue on.
Yeah,
And since it is going to continue on, I do have a responsibility.
absolutely. We all
And we all do, but I take that responsibility very seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. And don't you think it starts with the self? I mean, I think that's, the folks that I have even in my life who, their priorities are a little bit different, and I don't want to be judgy, but be like, if you don't have the time, give $20. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like there's an exchange of energy either way. But I look at that, at the landscape. I look at the people who are actively participating, wanting to show up. A lot more people this year are actually like, look, I have time. I want to do something more purpose driven.
Right.
I've
Mm-hmm.
got a lot more people reaching out to Shyne, like, hey, my day job is not fulfilling me in the way that I would like. They just took DEI away, and I'm a DEI coordinator, and now I have like to basically be told that I can't do my job and like
Right.
what's going on around here. And so they're looking for those of us who've been spearheading things that are innovative and different. And I'll be like, how did you find Shyne? They're like, I've never seen anything like this before. And it's like, well, yeah, that's because I came to this work with 20 plus years of experience in social services, and I know that system really well. And I knew that they weren't going to look at entrepreneurship as a possibility for this group of folks, you know? So
Right.
it's like, it wasn't like rocket science. It was like, I know that the system overlays the same solutions. And I think that's what Mr. Ballin has really done is kind of look at, hey, where are the gaps and the people that are actually boots on the ground doing things that are creating change, but don't have maybe the network or the training or the finances. Obviously we're always, in that boat. And like you, I think we are primarily volunteer-led organization, and it's like herding kittens sometimes, you're like,
Oh my gosh.
ah,
Yes.
how do we get everybody going in the same direction, please? So I think this is it's interesting time as like that whiteboard just got kind of wiped.
Yep.
It just took everything from women's rights to reproductive
I
rights to
know.
DEI, like the whole thing. And I was like, wow, this is a good time to be an entrepreneur. I wouldn't want to be stuck on HUD funding, I'll tell you that,
No,
because all those programs just kind of got wiped overnight.
they did.
Yeah, and it's destabilizing for an entire.
Well, it is, and because the immediate effect is on everybody who is already struggling. Insurance rates, auto insurance, home insurance. I just look at my mortgage that went up. I am blessed to have a mortgage. Yes. And it just went up $500 a month because of
I don't know if I can
insurance
get that.
hikes and taxes. I mean, that's insane.
It's insane.
It is. And then auto insurance rates also going up because the cost to replace an automobile now, because everything's going to cost so much more because we're all forced to buy American. And it's
What
like,
happens with that? I literally was like,
are we going to be like,
80 a month for my auto insurance with my kids, and January
we're
it
going to be
was
like Cuba. We're
thousand
all going to be
it was
patching together our vehicles.
$1,000.
I
It
know.
was three
I
times.
know.
What the heck?
Right.
Okay, so the pinch I'm feeling is real. Yeah,
The
because I've
pinch
had
is real. No, that's real numbers. And when grocery prices go up, folks, you got to know they're never coming down.
right,
They will never come down again. So
right.
whatever the prices you see happening, that's the new base. You can't say it's going to, oh, I wish it would return. It's never going to return. It never does. Never has in the history of our country. Has it ever gone back down?
Right. And then here we are sitting in spaces, I mean, for me, with survivors of trafficking and exploitation, and their food insecurity, the
Yes.
financial vulnerability is exactly why people end up going back into the commercial sex industry. That's why Shyne is here is, there are other options, whether that's
Right.
education, starting a business, getting a full-time employment, building up your resume, all of these things, they don't happen overnight. And this sort of just happened overnight. It felt very quick. We're still catching up with like what's going on. It's April tomorrow. I sit on the board of directors for the second largest nonprofit in San Diego. I've been there 10 years, and
Which is the second largest.
it's Neighborhood House Association
Okay.
since 1911 or something. We've been 110
Oh.
year old organization, 100 million more operating, 95% federally funded. Yeah. Yeah. And so I just saw us cutting programs right away. It was like, there goes the senior care center. There goes our HIV and AIDS support. I don't know what we're going to have to cut next, but we're looking at 850 full-time employees that if they don't decide with the Office of Education to continue Head Start, which normally doesn't get messed with from a budgetary standpoint,
Right.
it's nonpartisan, none of that, but it's redlined right now. So we don't know past June. And then I started thinking like, okay, then those families don't have childcare. They're already
Right.
low income.
Right.
They can't, and then the employees don't have other jobs to go to. And we can't pay rent because we don't have the funding. And so and then I just saw this whole,
It's a horrible cyclone.
And I think it's when people who are just so disconnected from
Yes.
these spaces, and I give thanks for those of us that can be advocates, that have the voice and the platform to speak up. My marketing team is really pressing me to be more vocal and to look for podcasts and places that we can really speak to. What I'm seeing in my team meetings is they have food insecurity. We
Right.
are cutting programs. Everything you're hearing on the news, okay, great. Let me give you some real facts that are you can't argue with, because this is actually happening.
Well, they need to open their eyes, and they want to be able to support themselves, be gainfully employed, not have to pull from the system. But how do they ever get going
Yeah,
if all the prices are spiraling out of control?
right.
If they're trying to keep their family safe, it's like, ooh, food or health insurance. Gah, what do we do?
Yeah.
Medications, all those things. These are very real. And the people making the decisions are, like you said, so out of touch. They have
Yeah.
never had to make those decisions in their life.
Right. Right. They have great privilege of not having that. And the thing is, it is the power of the people. I think a lot of what I like to focus on is Shyne's network is a grassroots, underground. We're not flashy. We're not
No,
out there posting about everything. We're not out there doing it. We're doing the work to build the network so that the individuals can resource themselves. And it's like this underswelling, right? And I really come back to the revolution will not be televised, and the people will rise up. The people, the more that we can invest in their education, in their ability to connect with one another, in their ability to move out of harm and into a space of healing and restoration and hopefully financial stability, then we have a fighting chance, because they are disruptors and they are very much capable. Poverty is like the hardest working people on the planet. They're working 3 jobs just to make ends meet. There is no lack of motivation or determination, and they just want what's better for their family, from generation to generation. I saw even here in San Diego, we had a huge flood last year. They've been going to the city and asking, can you fix our sewer system? The city never responded. We had this massive downpour in San Diego. It's just, we don't do well with water.
no, you don't.
And Chula Vista, which is where, third,
Mhm.
fourth, fifth generation homeowners, Hispanic families, their homes were flood 8 feet inside. They're a wrap. These houses are done. And you know what was interesting? Within 2 weeks, the outside investors were going to these families and saying, I'll offer you $150,000, $200,000 for your home, knowing it's prime real estate.
Oh, yeah.
No, and these families, like
What else could they do?
in crisis, there's nowhere for them to go. I just saw the whole thing and I'm like, oh,
That's
this is
so gross.
interesting.
That's ghoulish.
It's interesting, like how the haves can really profit off of the
Well,
have-nots.
and that's what all this is about.
It is. And
This
that's,
is all about how is it going to serve those people making the decisions best and their people,
yeah,
because there is an underlying reason to every one of these changes and decisions. And don't think that they are not all benefiting from this. That is a perfect example in Chula Vista. It's like, oh, city, you don't want to respond to that type of thing.
right.
And city doesn't, oh, we're gonna cut the funding to the city. Okay, because the county has no money, because the state has no money, because the feds decide they're not gonna do it anymore. So that makes it perfectly ripe for all those waiting to scoop up Chula Vista and turn it into the next bedroom community.
There you go.
Because that is the one of those areas, that national city, have always been kind of on the fringe.
Always. Yeah.
And
But those families owned their
I
homes.
know,
They were
no debt. They had
in
no
full,
debt in their
no
home.
debt. They had three, like so many people in the house, but like
So what? It's their
it's their
house.
culture. It's their
Well,
culture.
they
It's
want to live with everybody in
family
the house.
oriented. I know I was gonna say it's family oriented,
Yeah,
right? So taking care of grandparents has always been a part of their culture.
right.
And that whole neck of the woods, just so rich with culture. And that's what is frustrating for me when I hear the rhetoric. And like, I've lived in San Diego my entire life, I've been on a border my entire life, and I know the truth.
Yep.
Like I love Tijuana. I love going to Mexico. I have no
It
problem.
used to be just smeared and nobody cared. Everybody just went back and forth and it was fine.
Yeah, we never even checked IDs really.
No, but you go back and forth,
Like,
everybody did.
yeah. So
They would come up, we'd go down.
all of these
Yep.
layers. Where do you live?
I used to live in Southern California.
Okay, I was like, this area.
Yeah, no, so I'm in Oregon. I've been here for 20 years. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I
yeah,
love
I have a
Oregon.
lot of family in San Diego, Temecula,
Yeah.
and all down in that area. So yeah, it's
Yeah, and the cost of living here is insane.
mhm.
And I think to leave it back around to Shyne and kind of looking at systemic issues, my background, I got my degree in social work from San Diego State in 99. And at the time I was working with foster youth treatment level.
Mhm.
So I really got to see that system. So I spent about 15 years in the foster care reform movement here in San Diego, where the state was like, hey, these kids are turning 18, they're ending up incarcerated, we could do
Right.
better. And they gave a lot of state funding for this transition. And so I was blessed to be a part of that and really worked at starting new employment training programs, doing all the resume writing and all of that. Did so well that got duplicated by another agency. They just kind of moved me around. And then, so I started doing like a lot of startup, right? It was like,
Uh-huh.
hey, like I'm starting this stuff. And then I was having children at the time, so it was like, had my first kid and I was like, okay, what do I want to do now? And so I went with the YMCA thinking, I'm going to take a stable transitional living program job. A donor gave a 6-bedroom home up in Escondido and was like, hey, we need to do a transitional living program. And then they brought me on to do that. And I just had this knack for starting stuff. I was really good at doing program design and implementation. And the other programs, they couldn't get these foster youth to stay because, they turn 18 and the system doesn't have any control over them anymore.
Right.
A lot of programs couldn't get them to stay. I couldn't get them to leave. And it was really because I was using holistics. I went back to school for holistic health. And the school I went to called Body Mind College was really integral in my own healing of doing Tai Chi, Qigong, meditation, Reiki, all of these modalities that would benefit our youth in the program because they would take themselves off their meds and they needed to learn self-regulation, right? And so our star of the month would go to like the spa, things like that. We would teach them nutrition. We would teach them how to regulate. There was never any type of judgment around that. And we just knew that we had to check the box of going to get a job, going to school. We understood the federal funding required that, but they didn't require personal wellness. They didn't require how is this person's communication skills, which is going to help them in their job. And I
Right.
started kind of seeing that as like a theme, I'm like, huh,
Right.
interesting. So then I had my second child and I said, oh, I can't do 24-hour on call. And just in time for foster youth was coming out from under Polinsky Center, Child Abuse Prevention Foundation, to be their own 501. And they're like, we hear you're the startup girl. And that just kind of started my whole consulting company, working with innovative founders that were doing cutting edge social services. The reason Just in Time was cutting edge back then is because they were such a low barrier access point. Like, you need your rent paid, we paid your rent. You need your alternator fixed, we pay your alternator. You need an apartment, we get you an apartment. It was the best job. I literally got to just gift all the time, but they didn't have any structure or systems to say who had received what and, those kind of things.
Oh,
So I come in and I set that up, get a warehouse, tag every, like make sure that we know how many lamps we have and how many of these. And I would just get to show up with Cox, outfit an entire apartment and set up their internet at no cost, right? Up to the age of 24. And it was transformative because it was like they don't have parents. And the founders, Jeanette Day and Catherine Bond, were like, these kids, if they were my kids, this is what I would do. And that's how they built the program. And now, of course, it's gotten the governor's award and it makes sense. But back then it was, what? You're just giving them computers, you're just giving them stuff. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what we're doing. That was innovative. And then I had another friend that was like, hey, I hear you do startup for nonprofits. And we started Wave Academy, which is now Healing Waves Aquatic Center. And they provide Watsu at no cost, which is warm water aquatic body work. It would cost you about $150 an hour as a general public person to access. You couldn't access it anywhere except at the high-end resorts. And he just opened it up to veterans with PTS, and we did the poolside surveys, and I was so excited. 10 years later, they have a whole aquatic center here in San Diego with the pools, and they're steeped in the VA. But when we were starting, everybody's, what is this? This is so woo-woo. Let's just prescribe a medication.
Right.
And we're like, no, in 8 weeks, we are seeing PTS decrease by, 65%. These individuals are actually able to heal because their sympathetic nervous system is learning how to respond differently. And so I think all of that, and there were so many innovative groups, and that was my thing. I thought people will always house, put clothing, food, resume writing, job skills. That will always happen. But what the gap is, and what the survivors I work with now are saying, is we need the freedom to design our lives. We've been told what to do for so long. We have this incredible skill set, but nobody's teaching us how to launch. And so survivors who'd been like public speaking and designing programs for other NGOs, but they don't get their IP or anything. And I'm like, that's kind of exploitive.
That is totally.
So I started to see, I was like, wow, this system.
Well, that happened to you, and you didn't, at the time you didn't realize it. It's like, I was being exploited too.
Yeah. Off of their lived experience, they would go and speak and raise $200,000 in an event and be given a $25 gift card. And they were, I should be at the strip club then.
Yeah.
If this is what we're doing.
Right.
And so I really stepped into the center of a very interesting arena. So Shyne, actually, I don't do much in the anti-trafficking arena. I do most of my networking, business development on the business side. So like if you went to a college and you went to the School of Social Work, that's not where we reside. We reside over at the Knaus School of Business at USD. We're over on the pitch deck side. We're over there talking business and financials and those kind of things. And I think that's where people have trying to figure out, like, well, how is Shyne doing what it does, and how are you still here? And it's like, well, because I understood the lack of resources on the social service side, and they're like crabs in a barrel. I just was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not going to fight with you over $10,000.
No. No.
Yeah. It's been wild. Somebody offered me $85,000 one time to not do what I'm doing early on. They said, you do resume writing and interview skills. And I said, no, we do pitch presentations and financial advising and leadership development. And they're like, no. And I'm like, yes.
That's funny.
And they were insistent that we not do what we're doing, which made me more passionate in doing it, right? They said
why were they threatened by that?
Well, I'll tell you why. So the system is built on rescuing people. The verbiage, everything that we use on that side is that we know better than them. We have the solution for them. They are poor, dumb, and educated, all of that, right? Or they've been so abused and they're so traumatized and they just need us to come rescue them. No, they don't.
No.
They actually don't need rescuing. They know exactly how to be the master of their own lives. They are absolutely the CEOs. They know better than I know what is happening in their day-to-day life. And oftentimes when we design programs, we don't take into account what we were saying before. They haven't taken into account my unique life.
Right.
Right? Maybe I'm caretaking for a parent or a child. Maybe, who knows what my living situation is? I know best. And so Shyne showed up and was like, hey, you get to design your program and we're not going anywhere. There's no end date to this support.
Be sure to subscribe in all your favorite podcast apps. Look for All Volunteer, All Heart for Binky Patrol, or visit our website, binkypatrol.org, and our podcast site, binkypatrol.show. If you want to learn more about Shyne, go to shynesd.org. That's SHYNESD.org. Thanks for listening.